Hey, welcome to The Perspective. I'm Mike Sherbino. I hope you're enjoying the summer encore series that we're sharing with you all through July and August. You know, summertime is a great time to get out in the sun. You like to do a little fishing? I know I do. Love to be on the water. Love to ride my bike and do all those things. And if for whatever reason you haven't been able to do those things, you can still go to theperspective.tv, download one of our programs, and I know it will pick your spirits up. And this week is going to be no exception, from people who are just knocking it out of the park in helping families with their marriages. We've got some amazing authors. You'll enjoy it. I know you'll enjoy it. But especially today, I want to give you the promise for the week, as I've been doing each week. It's found in Isaiah 40, verse 31. And it says that those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They'll mount up with wings like an eagle. They'll run and not be weary. They'll walk and not faint. God wants to give you His strength and His presence right now for the summertime. There are moments, and you've raised kids.
Yes.
I've raised kids, and
Yeah.
I look at families right now, and sometimes I laugh. You know, when the 2-year-old is acting out,
I love that.
I've got it all figured out what they're to do, but nobody wants to listen to me. And then you know, you move through the pre-adolescent stages, and then
Gets a little
teenage years.
tricky.
Teenage years, man, just give up. However, you got to be active. And then there's the young adult age. And as a pastor, I keep flipping back and forth to all of this. I'm really glad that we have a couple here today that are going to help us to understand what young adults are.
Yes.
You know what the age is for young adult? We almost qualify.
What?
It's 18 to 30.
Oh,
But not quite.
not quite.
Tell us who our guests are, Julie.
Yes. Welcome to the show, Josiah and Micah Kennealy, right? We say Kennealy?
Yes, ma'am.
You got it.
We got it
Mike,
right.
Julie, it's so
10
great
points.
to be with you guys.
And we're so happy you guys are here. We're going to have a fun time talking about some
Sure.
pretty heavy subjects. And, you know, how do we influence this generation? How do we even understand this generation? But before we jump into that, talk to us about your ministry to young adults, how it
Yes.
got started, where you're at today, because that's so exciting to hear people that are making a difference.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you so much for having us. We actually have the opportunity and privilege to work with 18 to 30-year-olds. So we define 18 to 30-year-olds as the current young adult that is living on a college campus. They're figuring out the marketplace. They're getting married. They're making life-altering decisions between those 12 years. So we have a 4.5-month-old ministry. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization called Young Adults Today, where we essentially just want to resource not only the pastors and the leaders that are leading the young adults, but the young adults themselves. And we just do that through creating resources, rallying points, and relationships, because those are the three things that leaders and young adults themselves have just been starving for and coming to us asking questions. How do I build community? What does that mean and look like? So
Right. Now you said that your ministry is 4 months old, but you've been doing this, you told us earlier, about 10 years. So I want to jump in and ask you, what does a healthy Christian relationship look like? And maybe you can both take a stab at it.
You got it, Julie. I think that, our path has been through the local church, ministering to teens, youth, college students, and young adults the past 10 years, like you mentioned. And this is a lonely generation. This is an anxious generation, and also very discouraged. And what I love about that question is you asked kind of a few keywords. The first is healthy. There's a lot of relationships out there that aren't healthy and models at home or whatever. And the second is you asked a Christian relationship. And this is, by the way, the number one question that we get asked. People who are single or dating or they want to be married, a lot of them yesterday. And so young adults want to talk about love, sex, dating, relationships, and God's plan and their plan. And so what a healthy relationship that's a Christian, healthy Christian relationship, what that looks like. I always have people look at their hand, 5 fingers, and I'll talk about the thumb, pointer finger, the middle finger, ring finger, and then the pinky. And first, a healthy Christian relationship, either it's a green light, a thumbs up, or thumbs down right away by this. Is Christ at the
Go
center?
through the other fingers as well.
Thumbs
so
up
you
or
got my
thumbs
interest.
down. Okay.
Okay, so thumbs up or thumbs down is, are they a Christian? Do they follow Jesus? The second one is kind of the compass finger. So Christ follower is thumbs up or thumbs down. Direction in life, are you headed the same direction or are you going to end up on different continents? So the compass. The third, at least in the US, if you're a crazy driver, people might communicate, and we don't endorse this. But some people will communicate with their middle finger. And then commitment. You know, I grew up, my dad's a jeweler. And so Micah's ring, my dad, you know, special designed that one for her. But if you're going to commit to this relationship, are they committed to you? Are you committed to them? Or is this just an option? Is there games? Is there ghosting? And the last one is the pinky. And this is where I think we start, is where we should actually, it has a place. It's just not first place. And that's chemistry.
Yeah.
Well,
Chemistry. Talk a little more about chemistry.
Well, it's like it has a place, right? Like, are you attracted to each other? Are they a duh?
Yeah.
Do you actually have eye contact? Like, is there attraction? But I think sometimes we get caught up of, oh, he's so beautiful or she's so gorgeous, and we forget, like, do they love Jesus? Are you guys sharing common goals?
So, okay, let me push back a little bit, because what you don't know about me is I have 5 adult daughters. Okay, so I probably should have written a chapter in your book, or maybe I will. But as we push back and try to think through the decision-making process, seems to me that's got to be a key component as you talk to people, how to move outside of just the emotion of the moment into thinking through what are the long-term consequences. How do you teach that?
What we simply teach that is you need to be happy in singleness before you move forward in any form of a relationship, with the end goal of marriage in mind. So we even talk about there's 4 different layers, and one everybody hopefully wants to strive for is the very top, and that is I am happily married, and below that is happily single, and then it goes unhappily single, and then unhappily married. So even just those 4 tiers of, am I satisfied with who I am? The decisions that I made in life, what financial goals have I had? Is there things that I want to do before I get married that, you know, I'm dying to do and dying to accomplish? And hopefully, you know, we're not in that stage of unhappily married and unhappily, just not satisfied with life. So those are just 4 tiers that we kind of start with to help the young adult identify where are you at in life, where do you want to be, and that gap of what are you doing in the process of becoming the person you desire to be in the midst of a world that's chaos, confusion, and just taking it back to the basics.
For the single person, we work with a lot of single young adults because in the US, marriage is being delayed if people get married. Having children is being delayed if they have children. So talking to the single person who maybe is unhappy or discontent, what we encourage is if you get married right now and you're not happy with yourself in singleness, the only place you can go is down to unhappily married. So we would say before you get married, become happy, become satisfied in your relationship with God, in yourself. Because if you get married and you're unhappy already, marriage isn't going to fix your contentment as an individual. It's a myth that we believe that, once I find a right person or a relationship, all my other problems are going to go away. And we all know that's not the case.
Right. You know, I wanted to jump in there. On the weekend, I went to a wedding, and something that a pastor said really stuck with me at the wedding. He said, choose to love, and then love your choice. Can you speak into that?
Yeah, that's good.
That's wisdom right there. I think that, Julie, what you said there is that love is a choice. And so many times people plan thousands of hours and spend thousands of dollars on a wedding day. And that's a monumental day. We're not discounting that or saying lower the bar on that. What we are saying is let's raise the bar and think a little bit longer term into a lifetime of marriage. So many people prepare for a wedding day when it's actually a choice to be married for a lifetime. And if we over prepare for a wedding day and we under prepare for a lifetime of marriage together, that's the choice that this minister was talking about, is like, love the person that you choose, because the reality, you know what, there's a book that talks about flowers fade, grass withers, beauty is fading, but character, that lasts forever. The choice that you make, you marry a person likely when they're young and beautiful and attractive. And it's kind of like Lana Del Rey saying, will you still love me when I'm no longer young? Beautiful. That's the choice.
Okay, I don't know what you're talking about right now. So no,
That's
seriously.
good. That's
good words. Good words. We're going to be right back with Josiah and Micah and talking more about relationships with young adults.
Want to tell them about it, babe?
Yeah, so one side is the leader themselves. So anybody leading a young adult ministry, working with individuals between 18 to 30. So we are providing resources, rallying points, but also an opportunity for relationships in that process. And the other side is, who's the Josiah?
Young adults in this world today. We just believe that now is the time for the next generation. And we're trusting God for salvation, discipleship, feeding these young adults back into the local church where they can be discipled and thrive, discover that they're alive to thrive in life, in faith, in adulting, and in leadership.
Well, we're with Josiah and Micah Kennealy today, pastors, authors, and speakers, and their focus is in particular young adults. And guys, I want you to address something you said right at the beginning of the first part of the interview. And I'm intrigued because we live in such a high-tech age. Everybody's got a phone. Everybody's texting, Instagram, blah, blah, blah. You talked about how lonely young adults are. Seems they should be anything but, because they're in so much communication.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Don't you kind of feel like, Mike, that it's almost like a mirage? Here I have my iPhone. I probably shouldn't show it during the interview, but I have one too. And I think that it's almost an illusion or a mirage, right? If you're in the desert, you might see a shadow that looks enticing. It looks like beautiful water, and it looks like an oasis. And then you get there and it's dry, it's empty. And so I think that social media can sometimes be people's highlight reels. It can sometimes be the best of, and really it can be kind of an image management thing that, first of all, is anxiety, goes off the charts, just trying to manage people's image. But I think the other thing is we can have all these friends or follower accounts and comparison. And at the end of the day, what we realize is that's not what it's all about. What it's all about is deep, meaningful relationships, friends, like sharing a meal over a kitchen table, or having coffee in a coffee shop, or going for a walk, the things that we couldn't do during the pandemic that we all took for granted. And so I think that as great as technology is, it can also sometimes hurt when we think that we have something that we really don't.
You know, I'm a parent as well of two young adult girls. One just got married 5 weeks ago, and the other one's in school. So I fit right in there. Yeah. So as a parent, you know, tell us how our kids pick up on all our stuff and how we might curtail transferring our stuff onto them.
I should have had this conversation 10 years ago for me, but anyways, I'm going to listen.
No, I think that's so good. First of all, it's good to be a parent that's you're aware of those things. And even at a very small age, with 2001, that was a generation that entered into a world where the cell phone was in everybody's hands. Like they were the first 100% technology, iPads, iPhones, everything. And just being mindful that even at the young age, we have 2 daughters that are very young that can open up our phone and take photos. Like, so what we project in front of them is obviously what they're going to absorb. And that is even more so important for the teenagers and the young adults out there as a parent to be reminded of. If I'm sitting at the table as a parent and my phone is in front of my face when my children are there, what message am I sending them? What the interpretation that they're getting is mom's phone or dad's phone or their work comes before this family, comes before me, comes before all those other things. And we live in a world where teenagers already think the world revolves around them, right? Or young adults do. But if we can eliminate that barrier of looking at a screen, looking into their eyes and asking them not how's the weather, how's school, it's more or less how's your soul? How is technology in school increased your social life or decreased your social life? Are you competing and complaining and comparing yourself to all these different young women or men that you're following on social media? So I think the message that we have in our household will hold the test of time, and it's bringing people back to the table, a round circle. And that's why when we do ministry, we don't do rows to see the back of somebody's head. We do circles where we can see each other's eyes and have conversation. I think that's honestly what a generation is starving for, is that communication with adults, because 2 out of 3 young adults do not think an adult believes in them. So when into perspective, 66% of young adults think that nobody cares, nobody sees, nobody's asked me, how's my soul? I'm just another number. So hopefully that helps you.
That's interesting. Very
so
interesting.
let me pick on that, and maybe you've already answered it, but what do you think is the single most important thing then on young people's minds and hearts right now in this day and age that we live in? Is it the loneliness or was it something else?
I think that loneliness and having somebody who believes in us is huge. You can probably look back at your own life, and there had to be maybe a teacher or a coach or a parent or somebody who believed in you, and that can make all the difference. I think even back to parenting for a second, Micah mentioned our daughters are 1 and 2.5. Here's what I'm learning as a dad is I'm not perfect, but I can be present. And data and studies and research is showing that a child is far better off if their parent is just present, even if they're not a very good parent, but showing up. I think that what Micah was saying about putting the phone away, for us, my daughter called me a giant. So lowering the power gap and literally getting on my hands and knees or sitting or going out to the swing set and playing at the park. Touch starvation is real. So a hug from a parent, a high five from a coach, a handshake or a fist bump from a teacher. I mean, that can make the world of a difference in the young person's life.
And I think with that
go ahead. Yes.
Oh, yeah. One thing that I was just at a table with some best friends a couple nights ago, and we were talking about the younger generation of looking at, are we confusing community, which we all long for, right? Community, friendships, deep, meaningful. I want to be known. Like that's why we're designed to know and to be known by others. And the thing that's the competing thing is it a blurred line with entertainment? Are we entertaining young adults or are we providing community for them? And how can that cause confusion even in them without putting the words to it? Because I can entertain myself through all sorts of things, games, social media, movies, it doesn't matter. But when we put that and replace that with community and in the physical presence of other individuals, that's where they're saying, I want authenticity and I want people to be real and truthful with me as a person. So I don't know if that's something to lean into as well when we consider this.
Definitely. And I think the fact too that I was going to touch on the fact that you said touch starvation. I love the way you worded that. It just made me think about the fact about these young adults that have just gone through the pandemic and where they only had social media for so much of the time to be able to connect with people. And yet we're finding out the impact on people's mental health going through this. And particularly for the young adults being the ones that seem to be hit the hardest in trying to move forward with their careers and everything else. If you could just speak into that a little bit about, have you seen any success stories in all the people that you've dealt with? And we've only got a few seconds left, but maybe one.
Go ahead.
For sure. I'm thinking of young adults are looking for their purpose. And I believe that if you're watching right now, it's not an accident that you're alive. It's not an accident that you're living and you have breath in your lungs. I believe that you're created on purpose with a purpose. And when I say that, I think of our friend Sam. And I think of how he was a college student trying to look for what's my place in this world. And he ended up leaving one job moving to another state and finding a community. We talk about the power of relationships. It's transformational.
Yeah.
And he now is leading a young adult community and investing in the next generation, finding his purpose by helping others find theirs.
See, that's great.
That's a cool story. Hey, just before we wrap up, tell people how they can get in touch with you, where they can find you, and how they can get you to come in as a guest speaker and an inspirational coaches.
Yeah, so if you want to get in contact with us, you can go to our website at www.youngadults.today. And there you can find our resources, our podcasts, our books, speaking engagements. If you want to submit something to get us before you and you before us to kind of learn and kind of share ideas. And Josiah, how else can they get involved? Podcasts.
I'd say we have a podcast. One is for young adults. It's called the FYI podcast on faith, life, adulting, and relationships and finances. And then Young Adults Today is for leaders.
Great.
Fantastic.
Super. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. It's been really interesting to hear how you're approaching this.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Mike Sherbino, and I just want to say thank you for watching The Perspective. And part of my dream is that through The Perspective, we'll be able to communicate God's love across Canada and even further. And because of your partnership and help, this has actually been happening. Can I ask you today, as you think about your involvement, about being a partner in helping people hear the good news of Jesus Christ, would you go to the link below and click on and consider becoming a monthly partner with me as we seek to encourage and bring hope and healing into the lives of people across our country. Thanks for partnering with me. You know, Julie, as you're talking, it reminded me of a couple who spoke into my life when I was a young adult. And their names were Claude and Marion Loney. And Claude and Marion, they had 5 kids of their own, and they started a church. And they invited me to come. I was a first-year student in college, and I would show up for church, and then they would invite people back to their house for lunch. And, you know, being the poor, starving student, I always went. And I'll never forget, it's kind of an emotional story for me. But several years later, I'm rummaging through a box, and there is a fork and a knife in there. And I looked and said, where did it come from? And I realized that it was one of the many Sundays I was at their home, and I tucked it in my pocket. And I had Marion come and speak because her husband, Claude, had passed away. And when she came to speak at our church, I gave her back her fork and knife. And maybe I can just say today, not to doubt the influence that you can have. But you know, Julie, as I think about that story, and I think about Josiah and Micah, what they're sharing, they chose to influence people. And just simply by being there, and they invited me into what they were doing. And I had no idea that I would plant churches across Canada. And guess what was my best manual?
What was it?
Well, it wasn't a book. I remembered what they did. And on different occasions, I would start churches. And I referenced in yesterday's program how we were in Nova Scotia. And so we went to a community center, a hockey rink. It's where Sidney Crosby grew up in Cole Harbor Place. And I said, you know what? We're going to serve breakfast. And that's what Claude and Marion would have done. They always had food and people came. And I would serve breakfast. I called it Breakfast Church. I did that in Vancouver. I did that even here in this studio, the church that is next door to us here at North End Church, to serve food. And I learned it from them because of the influence they were in my life. And I want to say to each of you today that as you've been watching the program this week, I've been sharing a bit of the story, the things that have shaped me. I want to invite you to take a radical step. I want to invite you to pray seriously and saying, God, how can I support the ministry of The Perspective? It's not just television. It is also radio. It's also social media. God has given us many platforms to reach out. And part of our reaching out is simply to share the message of God's transforming love with people. People are listening. You're listening right now. And you might not yet be a follower of Jesus. I want you to know I'm still delighted you're watching the program because I believe the best is yet to come. And Jesus is extending his offer of love to you. Many of you are watching, though, today, and you're a follower of Jesus. I have a special plea, a request for each of you. It's found in the book of Colossians. It's what was part of my reading a couple days ago, and I shared it with the leadership at our church, and it's in Colossians chapter 4. The Apostle Paul is in prison when he writes, and he says some interesting things. He says, first of all, continue steadfastly in prayer, being watchful in it with thanksgiving. We've talked through this week of the importance of giving thanks. We've also talked at different times about the importance of prayer. And many people get cynical because at this point, when the person behind, the camera, which is me, says, would you pray for us? And would you think about supporting us? They're thinking, yeah, that's all they want is their money. It's not true. God has enabled us to do this. It is simply a miracle. But I believe he's moving on people's hearts so that we can take far more significant steps in touching Canada. We're on some faith-based stations, but my goal and what I've practiced even with radio is to be on more secular stations where I can just talk to people about the message of God's love. Will you help me with that? Because Paul goes on to say and pray that God will open to us a door for his word so that we might share it boldly. And if you were to go into my prayer journal, you would see that I have two things written down. I say, Lord, will you open up greater doors for us with television so that we can reach more people? Will you do that with radio? Why do I want to do that? It's because I'm a Canadian. I love Canada. And I know as Canadians, we love the rest of the world as well. And we want to help people. That's why this week we featured Malawi. We featured Ukraine. We share about these different ministries. But I need you to help me. If you'd like to go to our website, you can donate, you can be a partner, you can reach out, you can call me. I'd be glad to chat with you on the phone. I'm just trying to be the real deal. I'm not perfect. I'm a broken person, but I love Jesus. He's changed my life, and I want to share that with people, and I need you to help me with that. So I'm pleading with pastors, with leaders all across the country. Let's see what we can do together because we are better together as we seek to reach not just young adults, but an entire generation with the message of God's love. Thank you for listening. There was a comedian who once said that if money talked, all it ever said to him was goodbye. Could it be that over the summer months, you've been saying goodbye to a few dollars? How do you get them back? We've got for you this week on The Perspective, Eric Weir's amazing book called Who's Eating Your Pie? I have loved reading every page of this book. So helpful. And we want to make it available to the first 20 people who write in free of charge. Write to us at theperspective.tv, request a copy of Eric's book, and we'll send it to you free of charge. Would you also think and pray about being a regular monthly partner with us as we reach across the country of Canada with God's good news? And why do we do that? So that people can have a relationship with Jesus. And so if you've not started your relationship with Jesus, there's another book we're giving away all summer, and it's called Just Start. It helps you to understand the basics of the faith, what it means to know God and his help in those difficult times and those good times. So write to us at The Perspective. And if you've never started your life with Jesus, why not pray with me right now and say, Lord, I know I'm a sinner, and I'm asking you to forgive me, to be my leader and Lord. He will always hear that prayer. I would be honored if you'd let me know that you have opened your heart up to Jesus, and I'll be sure to send you this book right away. Write to us at theperspective.tv.